Hi students, in today's class I am going to explain a trick which is useful to solve any kind of questions regarding reactivity of metals. See this question. If a spoon of copper metal is placed in a solution of ferrous sulfate, what will happen? Like copper will precipitate out or iron will precipitate out, copper and Fe will precipitate, no reaction takes place. These are the common questions we observe in maximum of our competitive examinations. See here, if a spoon of copper metal is placed in a solution of ferrous sulfate, what will happen? What is the answer, students? Once try. Click on pass button and try your answer for this question. What is your option? You write on one paper. Let us see two more questions and once try the answers. At the end of this video, I make sure you will find the answers to all these type of questions. See, this is another question. Consider the following sets. These are the three set of things. In the first case, zinc rod is placed in copper sulfate solution. Second case, silver rod is placed in copper sulfate solution. And third case, magnesium rod is placed in copper sulfate solution. Copper sulfate is blue in color. The question is, blue color solution changes to colorless or fades in. In which container the colorless solution will, the colored solution, blue colored solution will change? That is the question. What is the answer? First container color will change, or second container, or third container? What is your option? You write on one paper. At the end of this video, you will tell the answer to these kind of questions. That is, can a solution of copper sulfate can be stored in zinc pot or silver pot? Means my question is, we can store copper sulfate in zinc pot or silver pot. What is your answer? Write on that paper. Now I am going to reveal the trick which is very useful for you, and I am going to tell you how to remember it also. Yes, this is the trick. Potassium is more reactive than sodium. Sodium is more reactive than barium. Barium is more reactive than calcium. Calcium is more reactive than magnesium. Magnesium is more reactive than aluminium. Magnesium is more reactive than aluminium. Aluminium is more reactive than zinc. Zinc is more reactive than nickel. Zinc is more reactive than nickel. Zinc is more reactive than iron. Iron is more reactive than nickel. Nickel is more reactive than tin. Tin is more reactive than hydrogen. Hydrogen is more reactive than copper. Copper is more reactive than mercury, silver, gold, platinum. This is the order of reactivity. This is a decreasing order of the reactivity. This is a very big reactivity series, right? Now I am going to reveal the trick. Remember this total reactivity series in the three words. One is PSBC. Next, mesentyl chap. What is the trick? PSBC mesentyl chap. What is the trick, students? PSBC mesentyl chap. What is the trick? PSBC mesentyl chap. That's it. What is the P? P stands for potassium. S stands for sodium. B stands for barium. C stands for calcium. M stands for magnesium. A stands for aluminium. Z for zinc. I for iron. N for nickel. T for tin, and L for lead. C for copper. H for mercury. A for silver. A for gold, and P for platinum. Let us see how this reactivity series is helpful for you. Now, and one more important thing, hydrogen is a non-metal. Hydrogen is a non-metal, and this hydrogen is it's not a metal. It is present between these two, mesentyl and chap. It is present between the mesentyl and chap. So it stays between hydrogen. It stays between lead and the copper. In the reactivity series, hydrogen stays between the lead and the copper. Now try to answer to this question, students. The elements which are more reactive, means the elements which are more reactive than the hydrogen can easily displace hydrogen. The elements which are less reactive than hydrogen, they cannot displace. Like suppose see PSBC, mesentyl, chap. Now the hydrogen stays between this lead and this copper. Now suppose if you take zinc from that solution, hydrogen can easily displaced by the zinc, because zinc is more reactive than the hydrogen. If you take copper solution means from that hydrogen cannot displace by the copper, because copper is less reactive than the hydrogen. These elements displace hydrogen, and these elements cannot replace hydrogen from their compounds. And this is the reactivity series. By using this reactivity series, try to answer these questions. If a spoon of copper metal is placed in a solution of ferrous sulfate, see this. Now only we discussed PSBC, mesentyl, chap. In this, we placed copper metal in ferrous sulfate. Copper metal in ferrous sulfate. Now we want to know whether iron is more reactive or copper is more reactive. If you see here, iron is I, here I, and here copper. Which is more reactive? Iron is more reactive. Copper is less reactive. So whenever this copper is less reactive, copper cannot displace iron from FeSO4. Thus ferrous sulfate, means there is no reaction between copper and ferrous sulfate. Why, students? Because copper is less reactive than the iron. Remember this series, it's very useful for you. PSBC, mesentyl, chap. Now what is the answer? Fourth option. Your answer is correct or not? Once check out. Coming to the second question. In this first example, first beaker, zinc is kept in copper sulfate solution, and silver is kept in copper sulfate, and third case, magnesium is kept in copper sulfate solution. We already discussed all are copper sulfate solutions but different electrodes. See here, what is the trick to remember? PSBC, mesentyl, chap. PSBC, mesentyl, chap. Now zinc and copper sulfate, which is more reactive? See, this is zinc and this is copper. So zinc is more reactive. Zinc is more reactive than the copper. So zinc, what it will do? Zinc reacts with copper sulfate and it results in the formation of zinc sulfate and copper. So the color of the blue changes to colorless because of the formation of zinc sulfate. And coming to the second case, silver is Silver is placed in what? Copper sulfate. Silver is placed in copper sulfate. According to this, according to our trick, silver is more reactive or less reactive? Silver is less reactive than copper. Whenever silver is less reactive, so Ag plus CuSO4, silver is less reactive, then this silver cannot displace copper from copper sulfate. So there is no reaction between silver and copper sulfate. Next, magnesium. If you put in copper sulfate solution, magnesium, see here, this is a magnesium M and copper sulfate, this is C. Which is more reactive? Magnesium is more reactive than copper. So whenever magnesium is more reactive than copper, then whenever you add magnesium to the copper sulfate, immediately it forms magnesium sulfate and copper. So the color of the blue changes to colorless. See here, in the second case, no change in the color, but in the first case and the third case, there is a change in the color. Now, what is the correct option, students? Fourth one. Yes. Let us see one more question. Can a solution of copper sulfate be stored in zinc pot or silver pot? What is your answer? Once think, what is your answer? Yes. PSBC mesentyl chap. I am repeating this one because you will remember. PSBC mesentyl chap. Yes. Copper sulfate, zinc plus copper sulfate. Which is more reactive? Which is more reactive? Zinc is more reactive than copper. So it will easily displace copper and it forms zinc sulfate and Cu. So next one is silver Ag plus CuSO4. Which is more reactive, students? This is copper and this is silver. So copper, and which is more reactive? Copper is more reactive. So this silver cannot displace copper from copper sulfate. So there is no reaction. Then you can store copper sulfate solution in silver because there is no reaction. But we should not store zinc in copper sulfate solution in zinc pot. Yes. Thanks for watching this video. If you found this video is useful for you, please give your like and subscribe my channel for more updates. For more suggestions and any queries, you can drop a comment in comment box. Thanks for watching.